Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for Invicta FC 18, Grasso versus Esquibel, which happens on July 29th. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. I am an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can buy a couple of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure called The Mutzer Prince in the Convent Kingdom for $4.99 on PDF format at www.chrismoldon.com. And if you have an e-reader, then you can buy the story on Amazon.com for $4.99. Also, for just $1.99, you can buy my short stories, starting with The Land of the Wooden Statues, which is a fantasy horror short story that I'm trying to make into a full novel. The Horror Collection, which is a collection of 3 of my gothic horror short stories, and my Fantasy Fable collection, which is a collection of 4 of my fantasy fables. Okay, onto this card. Good card. Has Alexa Grasso on it. She's someone that the Invicta FC obviously wants to feature. Good reason. Marketable, young, fan-friendly fight style. There's a lot to like about Alexa Grasso, and she really is one of the best prospects in women's MMA. The best bantamweight prospect in women's MMA is pretty much Aldana. She's fighting Agnieszka Niedzwiedz. I can't pronounce her last name really well. She's fighting Claudia Ray. That should be a good fight between 2 prospects. Got some veterans, and Dandois versus Duke. At this point, they're veterans. Megan Anderson's back in action. She's the best prospect at 145. And besides, Chris Cyborg is pretty much one of the only reasons to watch women's featherweight at this point. Not to be too disparaging of the division, it's just Megan Anderson has one of the better skill sets of the division. Inoue fights on this card, Aspen lad, so it's a pretty good card. There's actually some pretty known fighters and a couple prospects as well. So let's get started. Okay, in the main event, Jodie Esquibel fights Alexa Grasso. Okay, Jodie Esquibel, 5-1 record with 1 TKO and 4 decisions. 30 years old. She's 5-1 on a 2-fight win streak. Training out of Jackson Winklejohn. I thought she should have got into the Ultimate Fighter house personally, but I guess the judges saw because she tried out for the latest season of the Ultimate Fighter. I thought she did enough to get into the house in her fight, but I guess that didn't happen. She trains out of Jackson Winklejohn, and she last fought in pro MMA back in November of 2014. But of course she did just fight in that Ultimate Fighter, so, but those are considered exhibition bouts. She's pretty small for one. I believe this fight's going to be contested at 115, and she's pretty small for 115. She does have good boxing. She uses combinations well. I'd say her grappling is just about average. She can defend the takedowns relatively well, but she doesn't really specialize there. Alexa Grasso, 7-0 undefeated record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by decision. 22 years old, she's 5'5", training out of Lobo Gym. She last fought in February of 2015. That was a woman's fight of the year against Mizuki Inoue. Just an awesome fight. She has some strong boxing, and she doesn't look like it, but she has some really heavy hands. She drops opponents quite a bit. She actually has some really good head movement too. And then overall grappling skills are actually pretty good. She gets back to her feet when she's taken down. She can get out of bad positions. Yeah, she is not a bad grappler. With that said, I think Alexa Grasso here should be the better boxer, the bigger fighter. So I gotta go Alexa Grasso here to win this one, probably by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Aldana fights Tala Santos. Tala Santos, 13-0 undefeated record, 9 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 23 years old, she's 5'5", training out of Astra Fight Team with the likes of Darren Till and Galacco Franca. I only saw one fight of hers, unfortunately, and the only thing that happened is like she was getting leg locked, and she kept ground and pounding her opponent for the win. I saw a couple highlights. Her stand-up looked pretty good. She hits hard, so that's all I can really say about her. Aldana, 6-2 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. She also has 2 losses by KO or TKO. 28 years old, she's 5'9", training at a Lobo gym with the likes of Alexa Grasso. She is a finisher who's never been to decision. She has some strong boxing herself, real heavy-handed too. Her grappling, I'd say it's average, you know. I remember she got that rear naked choke on an opponent. Otherwise, it's just average. It's not a standout ability of hers, but it's not a liability at the same time. With that said, I gotta go with Aldana. I'm actually surprised that both her and Alexa Grasso are not in the UFC yet. They seemingly appear to be UFC ready. Aldana just has some really good boxing and pretty heavy-handed, and like I said, her grappling, in my opinion, isn't necessarily a liability. So Aldana by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Agnieszka Niedzwiedz, or I had the name. Agnieszka Kuma, I'll just say Niedzwiedz, versus Claudia Ray. Claudia Ray, 6-0 undefeated record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. Trains out of Astra Fight Team. She's a finisher who's never been to decision. She's last fought back in April of 2015. I looked at both of their records, the last 4 opponents, and you're not talking about fighters with great records. Claudia Ray seemed like she was pretty much can crushing. She's found a lot of opponents with losing records who just looked really bad. The one fight I saw her in, she jabbed her opponent, and then her opponent didn't know how to get out of like a standing front headlock, and just looked pretty bad. She seems to be very aggressive, but she seems a bit reckless as well. Agnieszka Niedzwiedz has a 7-0 undefeated record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 21 years old. She's 5'5", and she last fought in June of 2014. I actually watched 2 of her fights, her Cage Warriors fights. And here's the thing, at least with the Cage Warriors, like, the opponents she fought actually, didn't have great records. Looked like they had some level of, like, decent skill, you know. They're just inexperienced. With Agnieszka, I liked her boxing. She actually uses a jab. She throws in combination. It's pretty rote, you know, like just kind of like a 1-2, you know. But it wasn't bad by any means. She does have a judo background, which she uses pretty well, actually. And her submission grappling ability is actually pretty solid. I saw one fight of hers where she had a really nice triangle choke, kept adjusting, and eventually got it after a lot of scrambling and whatnot. I like Agnieszka's game a lot better than Claudia Reyes from what I've seen. I like that. Agnieszka, she has the judo background, she can strike, and overall I just liked what I seen from her. So I think Claudia Rey, I need to see more of her. I've only based her on, some highlights and one fight where she was pretty much crushing a can. But otherwise, I'll go with Agnieszka Niedzwiedz to win by submission. Once again, I don't have her last name down very well. I know it's Niedzwiedz or something like that. I forgot. I'm probably way off with that. But Agnieszka to win by submission. Next fight after that, excuse me, Cindy Battlecat Dandois fights Jessamyn the Gun Duke. Dandois, 6-2 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 31 years old. She's 5'7", trading wins and losses. She does have some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. She has a good clinch takedown ability. Her stand-up is really weak though. It's very awkward. She leaves her chin high and she rushes in to the clinch. She pretty much strikes to clinch. Jessamyn Duke, 3-4 record with 1 no contest, 1 win by TKO, 1 win by sub, 2 losses by KO or TKO. 30 years old, she's 5'11", on a 4-fight losing streak. Trains out of CSW these days. At her best, her stand-up can look pretty good. She has good knees for the clinch, and her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills actually aren't that bad. One thing with Jessamyn Duke that has to be said, she got put into the UFC way too early. She's good. She could have been. I think her prospect window has kind of died unless she made some big changes. And she's actually fighting a pretty tough opponent in Cindy Dandois here. I will say this though. Jessamyn Duke isn't necessarily losing her fights because she's getting out grappled. Betch Kohea, was it Elizabeth Phillips, right? Leslie Smith, Irene Aldana. She's not getting out grappled by these opponents. She's getting out struck. And the thing with Cindy Dandois is she's not a good striker, but she's a good grappler. So, and I gotta wonder if Duke can actually beat up Dandois in the stand-up. I'm gonna take a flyer here. I know that Duke is on a 4-fight losing streak, and Dandois is actually looking pretty good. She even beat Megan Anderson quite recently, who I'm very high on. And Dandois is a tough opponent, but I'm going with a flyer on Jessamyn Duke here, just because one, her losses aren't due to her being out grappled, and two, I'm gonna have some faith that she can actually strike and strike well with Cindy Dandois. Hopefully she doesn't get caught in something. I can totally see her getting caught with like a triangle or something like that, or just getting over anxious and getting like taken down and something bad happening to her. One of many options can happen to Jessamyn Duke. But you know what? Kind of going with this. I know, like I said, she's on this really bad losing streak, but I'm gonna go Jessamyn Duke to finally get out of her rut and get the KO or TKO victory. Jessamyn Duke, KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Megan Anderson fights Peggy the Daywalker Morgan. Morgan, 4-3 record with all 4 wins by decision. 36 years old, she's 6'1", trading wins and losses. She last fought in August of 2015. The thing with Morgan is she is really unathletic. Everything about her game is really standard at best. Her stand-up's decent, she's just kind of slow. She doesn't have great defense. Her grappling's alright, you know, nothing standout-ish, and her defense standing's pretty bad. Megan Anderson, 6-2 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 26 years old. She's 6 foot on a 2-fight winning streak. Her Muay Thai is pretty strong. She has good knees and kicks, and actually has shown to be pretty heavy-handed. Her grappling, despite losing to Cindy Dandois, actually isn't that bad, but I mean, it's not great. But, you know, I'd say it's average. Nonetheless, I like Megan Anderson's game here. The fact that it looks like Invicta FC really likes her. She's fighting quite frequently for the organization. And like I said, it's pretty much the outside, you know, one of the best reasons to watch women's featherweight outside of Chris Cyborg. You know, one of the like better prospects of the division, fights pretty well, fan-friendly, marketable. She's got it all, you know. Megan Anderson to win this by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Lynn lights out Alvarez, fights Mizuki Inoue. Ooh, shoot, I forgot to write her record. Nonetheless, forget her record, I guess. Forgot to jot it down, but she's taking this fight on short notice. Things you have to know about her is that she has some strong boxing. She uses combinations really well. She actually has a pretty good chin, too. When she went like Carolina Kovakovic or Alexa Grasso, she kept pushing forward, kept taking hits and trying to give her own back. Her offensive takedown ability actually isn't that bad, and she has some good, real solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Lynn lights out Alvarez, 6-3 record, 1 win by TKO, 5 wins by sub. She also has 1 loss by TKO and 2 losses by sub. 30 years old, she's 5'2". She is a finisher who's never been to decision. She last fought in pro MMA back in January of 2014. I want to say that she tried out for the Ultimate Fighter. I'm not 100% sure about that though. Her overall grappling game is actually pretty good. Her stand-up's just average. The only fight I can... she fought some of the higher level competition, like Carlos Esparza and whatnot. I just recently saw her, rewatched her fight against Amber Stotzenberger, where she just like annihilated her. With that said though, I like Mizuki Inoue's game here. Her boxing's really sound. And her ground game's actually quite wouldn't call it underrated, it's just quite good. I'll go Mizuki Inoue to win this one by submission, because as good as Inoue's boxing is, she doesn't have a lot of power in her strikes. So, but I do feel she can take the fight to the ground and get a sub. So, Mizuki Inoue by submission. Next fight is that Sijara Sarge Eubanks fights Amberlynn Alo Orr. Orr has no pro MMA fights, but she is 11-1 as an amateur. 3 wins by KO or TKO as an amateur, and 7 wins by sub as an amateur. 23 years old, she's 5'7". She actually has some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Her offensive takedown ability is not too bad. Her striking is just alright at best. One thing that's a problem with Amberlynn is she can be a little too content off of her back, and I mean this is quite typical of a good amount of women MMA fighters, is that they fight off their back far too much. Amberlynn Orr is no exception to that. It's not the worst thing because she's gotten like armbar victories and whatnot from her back, but you know, in MMA, eventually you can't play that game unless you're like Damian Maia, you know? Sijara Eubanks, 1-1 record, 1 TKO, and 1 loss by decision. She's 5'3", training out of Team Lloyd Irvin. She has some really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills herself. She actually has you know, you can actually find online one of her matches against Mackenzie Dern. So she has a really good Jiu-Jitsu background. Her offensive takedown ability is pretty solid, and and she has some pretty good ground and pound. Excuse me. Good ground and pound as well. Tough one for me to call. They're both good on the ground, but I actually like Sijara Eubanks a little better. I think she can do pretty well to get the fight to the ground, stay on top, and work her game there. Tough to say about method of victory. I'll just go Sijara Eubanks by decision. Next fight after that, Aspen Lad fights Jessica Bakken-Hoy. Hoy 1-0 record with 1 win by TKO. She's 5'7". I saw one of her fights where she got the fight to the ground. Actually hit a nice mounted triangle. Her grappling looked pretty good actually. Didn't see anything with her stand up though. Aspen Lad 3-0 undefeated record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by sub. 21 years old, she's 5'6", and is a finisher. She's never been to decision. She is a very aggressive, pretty much grappler. She'll strike with her opponent. She kind of strikes it's kind of sloppy, but she'll strike with high volume. She kind of reminds me of a Leslie Smith. Kind of sloppy, but high volume. Not much head movement, not much defense. But she is super aggressive. When she takes her opponent down, she is unloading with ground and pound. And overall Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are pretty good too. She makes pretty short work of her opposition. Oh, excuse me. With that said, I gotta go with Aspen Lad to win this one. I think she can take the fight to the ground, unload some ground and pound, and if the sub shows itself, she'll get it. But if not, she'll keep ground and pounding. She's really good too at finding openings in ground and pound. I remember when she fought Amanda Bobby Cooper, who reached the finals of the Ultimate Fighter. She managed to get a dominant position, mount, back mount, and she was actually hitting ground and pound on the transitions from mount to back mount. Some really good elbows and punches. So Aspen Lad by KO or TKO. And finally, Tessa the Typhoon Simpson fights Simona Sukapova. Sukapova, 5-3 record with 1 draw. 3 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. She's 39 years old, she's 5'1", and a finisher. Last fought in May of 2015. Her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are actually pretty good. She can also be caught fighting a little too much off her back sometimes. Her stand-up, I'd say, is average. I'd say it's, at this point, probably a little better than Tessa Simpson's, though. Tessa Simpson, 4-1 record, 1 win by TKO, 2 wins by sub. 29 years old, she's 5'2", on a 2-fight win streak. So I watched her fight against Paulina Granados, and I liked what I saw, especially from her ground game. From what the announcer said, she was a BJJ black belt, BJJ brown belt. I don't know what belt she is now, but she looked good in her fight. When it hit the ground, she hit sweeps quite well on transitions in the ground. Her top game was really good. She got acquired mount really well. Looked to be pretty heavy too. I liked her BJJ game a lot. Her offensive takedown ability is pretty good. Standing, I didn't get to see much of it, but she did show some good clinch knees. With that said, I'll go Tessa Simpson to win this one by submission. Okay, to recap. Alexa Grasso versus Jodie Esquibel. I have Alexa Grasso by KO or TKO. Irene Aldana beating Tala Santos by KO or TKO. Agnieszka Niedzwiedz beating Claudia Ray by submission. Jessamyn Duke beating Cindy Dandois by KO or TKO. Megan Anderson over Peggy Morgan by KO or TKO. Mizuki Inoue beating Lynn Alvarez by submission. Sijara Eubanks over Amberlynn by decision. Aspen Lad beating Jessica Hoy by KO or TKO. And Tessa Simpson over Simona Sukapova by submission. So that's it for my predictions for Invicta FC 18, Grasso versus Esquibel. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please support me in my journey of being an author by buying one of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure called The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on PDF at www.chrismoldon.com, or if you have an e-reader, you can buy it from amazon.com. You can also buy my short stories for $1.99, starting with The Land of the Wooden Statues, or you can buy my horror collection or my fantasy fable collection. So, that's pretty much it for this edition of MMA for You. And yeah, so that's it for MMA for You. Thank you guys very much.